I started seeing a lot of talk about fire everybody. I'm never on board for rash decisions like that, where just that everybody calls for people's heads. Uh, but maybe somebody does need to get fired. I don't think there needs to be wholesale changes, uh, but I feel like something needs to change. I don't know how much of this game I really put on LaFleur. Um, because there were guys getting open. The balls were hitting people in the hands.
Yep.
So it's not like the plays were bad. But yet again, it just didn't feel like there was any flow. There wasn't any vision. There wasn't any creativity. Uh, and that's kind of been what LaFleur's been all year. It's just kind of been throwing things out and seeing what sticks. And if we score, we score. And it was kind of like that last night, and we didn't score. And we haven't scored in a long time. We've just been settling for field goals for weeks. And that kind of play is just not going to cut it, especially when you have playoffs on the line. Um, I don't know. How much do you put it on LaFleur?
Yeah, I'm gonna make kind of a weird analogy for the season overall, and then I'm gonna relate it back to Michael Floor, and it'll all tie things up and lead us into where do we go from here with this staff? Because we could sit here and argue and speculate all day over who to bring in, who to trade for, all of that, and I'm sure we will at some point after the season gets over. But first and foremost, you got to reflect at the end of the year on your own roster, on your own team. When you're not in the postseason, you got to be introspective before you can look outside of your own building, and you got to really see what changes may need to be made internally and who you may have to replace or who you may have to improve from. So I think back to, I believe it was after the first Bills game when the Jets beat Buffalo. And Robert Saleh made an analogy talking about his opponents, where exactly what you were saying, Matt, of this team never quit. We always lauded them for their ability to fight. That Coach Saleh preaches, that's reaching to that 60%, all gas, no break. We're going to be the more explosive, more tougher team. And when it's the end of the game and it's crunch time, we're going to be the ones hitting you in the mouth, not the other way around. And the analogy that he made was eventually you keep dragging people out to deep water and you'll find out they can't swim. And for the Jets in particular, they got their floaties popped and they drowned themselves because you had Brees Hall that made the offense go a lot better than it probably should have. You had Elijah Vera-Tucker that was making an offensive line look a lot better than it probably should have. And you had a quarterback in Zach Wilson that was being carried by his defense being able to be stifling and at the time generate turnovers, and his offense being able to run the football with his rookie running back, be able to scheme up play action passes and easy reads for him to execute, and all he has to do is read one guy and make a throw. Once that's gone, what do you have left and how do you stay afloat? And this is where I'm relating it back to Michael Floor. That's your job as an offensive coordinator, to go find the life jackets for everybody. That's your job as the offensive coordinator, to go find ways to dig yourself out of those holes. When things get tough, is it up to, your backup players and everybody else on your 53-man roster to step up? Absolutely. The players have to execute, and there's 100% a part to that. They are not without blame. But it is a coach's job to make the game as easy as possible for the players and put them in the best positions possible to be successful. And we really saw Mike LaFleur struggle with that when he had to be the one helping his players and not the other way around. I think back to the Jacksonville Jaguars game, where I can't tell you how many times, Matt, we saw Trevor Lawrence get his receivers into a bunch set and just throw a quick little bubble screen where the receiver would catch the ball, have two blockers out in front of him, and it would be 7 yards on first down. Here you go, 2nd and 3. Positive possession. You can take a shot if you want to. You're likely to pick up a first down. You don't get it. It's 3rd and short. You can work from there. If you want to just pick up the first down, not try and take a shot and keep chains moving, that works too. We don't see anything like that from Michael Floor. We don't. There's no easy answers to help out an offense. It's we're going to run our scheme because that's what we do and our scheme works. And you try and run the exact same offense when you have LDT starting at right guard and you have Zonovan Knight in the backfield as opposed to Brees Hall and Elijah Vera-Tucker. And you try and do the same sort of passing game with Mike White under center that you had with Zach Wilson. And Mike White's able to execute it a little more effectively, but I don't think Mike White has proven at all to be as effective as a downfield thrower where you're stretching a defense vertically and threatening them with an opportunity on a deep shot. I just don't think we've seen it from him. That really hasn't been his game. His yards per attempt has been low in pretty much every start he's had. You, as Michael Flores, the offensive coordinator of this team, have to be more creative and have to be more willing to go outside of yourself. And even if it's completely and totally shameless, steal from someone else. The NFL is a thievery league, especially offensively. You see people copy plays all the other time, and the good offensive coordinators have zero shame about it. When they see something that's good that works and they think it could work for them, they'll throw it in their playbook whatsoever, and they don't give a damn who came up with it, because if it works for them, it works for them. They don't have the ego of, this is our scheme, this is how I put things together, this is how I want things to be done, and it's going to work because I think it's going to work. We just have seen no pivot from LaFleur, and I know it's not easy to completely flip your offense overnight. But if other teams in the NFL on a week-to-week basis can be seeing things on film from other clubs and installing them in a week and adding them in crucial situations to help them win football games, there's no reason the Jets shouldn't be doing that too, and they haven't done it for 2 years. It's a problem. It's a big problem to me.
Yeah. How quickly did the Philly special make it into every single playbook in the NFL?
How quickly did
After
the
Philly.
tight end's going to take the quarterback sneak make it into every single playbook in the
Exactly.
NFL this year?
It's all at the speed of light, how these things transfer, and the fact that it hasn't with LaFleur is a huge red flag. I when looking at LaFleur, I have to look at it from two different point of views. One, from the point of view of what has he had to deal with, and with injuries and everything that's kind of fallen apart.
And he's had to deal with a lot. That's a fair point.
And I try to relate that with Zach. With Zach, when the pocket was clean and he had no pressure, he had a stat line that was at somewhat of a satisfactory level, as opposed to when he was pressured. And it's kind of like that for LaFleur as well. When everything's going right, he's got his weapons and everybody's healthy and everything's flowing. He's able to put together game plans that have some kind of flow to them, and we have an offense that could resemble something of an offense that can get it done in the NFL. But when things are down and he's got injuries, he doesn't really have an answer. He doesn't know how to maneuver his way into making the players that he does have into a formidable force, using just his creativity and what he knows about his team. And the fact that he hasn't is a huge red flag. I truly don't believe he was ready for this role right away. I would have hoped that maybe Saleh kind of eased him in with maybe the same role he had in San Francisco, which was what, the passing game coordinator, and maybe had a run game coordinator to go with him. That's kind of where I'd maybe lean towards next year as well, if he doesn't want to outright fire him. But I don't even see that happening. I don't know. We'll get to that, but I just don't think he was ready, and it's showing time and time on the field, and it's just hard because this is his Saleh's best friend's brother. Like, they have that saying, "Don't get into business with family and friends," or don't borrow money from family and friends, because now you get the sticky situation where you have a guy who probably wasn't ready for it, and he's learning on the job. But now things aren't where we want them to be. They aren't where we need them to be, and everybody's on the hot seat. So something needs to change, and it's all on Saw right now to maybe make those decisions.
Yeah, no, you brought up a point there that I want to get into, because I think that's where we'll start with what happens with this team when you're looking at things introspectively, because I do not think Michael Flores is getting fired. Personally, if I was the head coach, and I can't speak this saying it was the best man at my wedding's younger brother, that's the guy that I'm having to do this to, I think he's in over his head, and I think he needs to go. And I think you need to find a new offense coordinator that's a veteran in the league to run things. That said, the point you made about Matt, about adding another voice in the room to take some of the load off, I think is 1,000% what needs to happen in reality. Because Michael Floor, let's go back a few years and remember what he came from. He came from San Francisco, where Kyle Shanahan is widely regarded as one of the best offensive minds in the sport, and everybody in the world knows it. And even he had two guys on his staff to help him plan an offense. He had Michael Flores, his passing game coordinator. He had Mike McDaniel as his run game coordinator. He had John Benton as his offensive line coach that can also help. Now the Jets are viewing it as they have Benton as the run game coordinator, and they had Greg Knapp, rest in peace, before the season in 2021 to be the quarterback guru specialist quarterback coach. Now, when it comes to the passing game, you pretty much only have Michael Floor. Rod Calabrese has had no play calling experience in the league or close to it. So how much is he really going to help you game plan and design an offense and come up with your scheme? And you have Benton, who used to just be an offensive line coach and just get to focus on coaching that, now also doing some amount of run game scheming. I think they really need to bring in somebody, and I don't know how you're going to be able to do this without outright giving them the offensive coordinator job. But I really think you need to bring somebody in as a senior offensive assistant that's going to work with LaFleur, be there as a voice of guidance, be there to explain, things he may not understand or add other ideas. Because I just think there's so much on his shoulders right now, and he's not sure how to figure it out. And now things are just tumbling, and he doesn't know how to get out of it. And you're just digging a pit deeper for yourself. And it's really striking to me that a guy as smart and as talented as Kyle Shanahan has is not so full of himself and is humilitable, whatever the word is, enough to have other guys in the room to help him and to know that he can't just handle everything himself while also being the head coach coaching the other team. Now, Michael Floor isn't a head coach himself, but it's still a role that he hadn't had in the NFL before that was new for him. And I really think it would do this team a lot of good. I think the first thing they have to do is not make any sort of subtraction from the staff, but make an addition, find somebody to bring in. If no one takes Frank Reich as an offensive coordinator and somehow he's looking for a job, I think he's the ideal voice to bring in.
Yeah, I completely agree. Um, when I look at the relationship between Saleh and LaFleur, it's like a brotherly relationship. And I feel like anything other than bringing back LaFleur in the same role that he has right now would kind of be a slap in the face to LaFleur. And I don't know how that would go. Like I truly I don't know enough about their relationship. I can speculate, but and say that they're like brothers, but at the same time, it's I everything that I've heard from Saleh after the fact is like, oh, it makes it sound like nothing is going to change. It sounds like he's relating it to his own situation in San Francisco after a bad year, and people were talking about him getting fired and how they stuck with him, and then everything kind of fell into place. And it sounds like he's going to be doing that with LaFleur as well, where he's going to get another chance, and we'll see what happens. Now, here's the thing: the staff is up to Saleh, but how much say does Joe Douglas or Woody Johnson have in this? Because they're looking at this the same way the fans are. Like, hey, we need to win. We were this close to getting to the playoffs. We should have been in the playoffs, and we didn't make it again. This reminiscent of the Fitzgerald year. Do they have, or maybe I do? They do have the power, but will they wield that power in demanding change?
I think if I know how at least this team is reported to operate, and I'm inclined to believe it because it seems like everyone is on the same page. And if there was some amount of friction, I feel like after 2 years we would know. And it doesn't seem to be that way. I don't think Joe Douglas is the type of guy that's ever going to go to Saleh and say, you have to make a change to your staff. That doesn't seem like the type of GM that he wants to be. It doesn't seem like something that he would do. That said, I think Saleh values Douglas's opinion. And I think that Douglas would absolutely have the freedom to say, I think Mike needs help. I think Mike really struggled in these particular areas, and it's something that he needs to improve on. I don't think that he would ever sit there and go, you need to fire him, and I'm the GM, and you report to me, and I'm telling you as your boss, fire him. I'm making the decision. I think he would give his opinion, and then I think he would say, but Robert, it's your staff. At the end of the day, it's your call, and I am never going to make a decision for you. That said, I don't think Woody's that type of person.
No.
And I think if it really was the rumors of Woody Johnson not getting along with Saleh, I don't buy for a second. I absolutely do not buy that for a second. As soon as they hired this dude, Woody Johnson was kissing the ground he freaking walked on, and it's been like that ever since. I can't see that being the case whatsoever. But I also think that if Woody outright was this frustrated with LaFleur and maybe behind closed doors, things have happened to lead it that way that we don't know about, I do think that he could definitely be the type of guy to go, I think you need to make a move and I'm the owner and I'm kind of saying it. Now, would he again outright force the hand and go, you have to fire this guy right now? I'm making the decision. I don't know, because I think Robert Saleh, being the type of person that he is, would say, okay, then shove it. I'm out of here. And,
Mhm.
and wouldn't, and then your same old Jets circus. And I really don't think that the culture, the way as it is constructed to operate like that. There's a lot of still circus like things that ends up happening with this team, but it doesn't seem like that core nucleus has that much of a problem. I think the best case scenario is to bring in someone with veteran experience as a play caller in the league, even if you have to go pluck them back out of the college ranks, give them a senior, assistant position, find some sort of role for them on this team to help collaborate with LaFleur and guide him along, because I don't think he's getting fired. Like I said, exactly what you said, Matt. It seems like that's exactly the case, that Salah's not even remotely thinking of it as a possibility, and relating it to himself when he was in San Francisco. And after 2 years, their defense was bad, and Kyle could have fired him and, in Salah's own words, made him the scapegoat. And he didn't. And he evaluated the team and came back and gave them another shot. The next year, they were in the Super Bowl. I'm sure that there's a lot of truth to that. But I also think that, at least from the schooling from different coaches and different scenarios that we've seen and the success at places they had been before, I feel like Saleh has a little more, of a reputation and provenness in the league to be able to sit there and go, but I had also been in the league for 15 years before that. And I didn't get brought up with Kyle everywhere I went. I had met Kyle and was hired as his defensive coordinator, having worked with people that had worked familiar with him, but not directly for him. This is a situation where LaFleur got brought up by Shanahan everywhere until he's getting brought up by Saleh, which is another guy that's probably going to string him along. So I really hope they bring in another voice, because we're watching Michael LaFleur like drown right now.
We really are. Now, do you think there's a remote possibility that maybe things just click if nothing changes and he just goes into the season as the sole offensive mind, the decision maker on the offense, that things will maybe just click and he'll find his voice? I'll wait for your answer, but what I think is no, I don't see it. If I've seen some semblance of it throughout the season where he was able to change even just a little bit to fit his players and to fit what he had, then maybe. But the fact that we haven't seen it really at all is troubling and leads me to believe that without something dramatic happening, it just won't change.
No, I'm in complete agreement with you. And I also think the other point to that, if you're relating it directly to Saleh's going into Saleh's third year as a coordinator versus LaFleur's, who Saleh got, and this is where speculation can come into it, but this is one thing we know for sure. You know who Saleh got on his team going into 2019 that kind of really, really helped him make things a little bit easier? Nick Bosa. You know who really, really started to turn things on in the 2019 season and emerged themselves as one of the better players of their position in the league? Fred Warner. So are you going to get the offensive version of Fred Warner and Nick Bosa for Michael LaFleur? Are you going to have guys that can come in and be that impactful to make an improvement. And I'm not trying to take away anything, any credit from anything else Saleh did as a coordinator, because he did have a very good season and the defense was very good. But would that defense be as good as it was to get all the way to the Super Bowl without the play of Nick Bosa and Fred Warner? I don't think so. And I don't think it's 100% give Robert Saleh all the credit in the world for this defense and don't give any of these players any credit whatsoever. With the way things are constructed right now for the Jets offense, where they have no clear answer at quarterback whatsoever and their offensive line situation is murky at best, do you think that LaFleur is going to succeed? I sure don't. And I don't think any rookie, because he's still a rookie in my eyes. This is still his first job as an offensive coordinator. He's still only in his second year as a play caller. He's not even finished with it yet. You're still young pup when it comes to NFL experience. For a young pup offensive coordinator, that is a tough situation to overcome. I don't know anybody that would succeed like that.
Yeah, it's really hard. And just to go back to what I said about how when things are right, things look better on offense. When people are healthy, when our stars are playing like stars, things definitely looked a lot different. And that could happen. We still have a lot of star power on the offense. We have our first 1,000-yard receiver in Wilson. We've got Hall coming back. Hopefully,
Who still leads the team in rushing, by the way.
Still, really, that's something. So if these guys can come back and be the same stars, it will help a lot. I don't think it's a cure-all for sure, because
no,
without an offensive line or quarterback, those guys aren't going to be. They can do their best, and we'll be clinging on to life because of them, but we won't have an offense that can consistently thrive. So yeah, there's just so much uncertainty, and we need more. We just need a lot more, and at places that are premium places on the offensive line and quarterback. So yeah, it's really hard to see unless those things kind of settle down into a place of stability. Then I don't see any stability with him. But then again, maybe you can say that about a lot of coordinators. If they don't have a quarterback or an offensive line, how many offensive coordinators do you think can really overcome that?
Right. And this is the point that I think we should make, Matt. And I think that's very, very astute of you to bring up. Sometimes it's not always about the results, it's about the process. And for me, the process is broken just as much as the results for Michael LaFleur. If we were seeing you're trying to, add in new wrinkles and steal plays from other teams, and for God's sake, Tariq Woolen and the slot safety, you're 9 yards off, just motion to a bunch like the Jaguars did and pick up 7 yards on first down. Why? Because it's easy. If we were seeing more things like that out of Michael LaFleur and it just wasn't working as well because the players on the field weren't executing in the right way, it's a completely different story. It's a completely and totally different story. But we are seeing the same play calls against different teams every week, regardless of their opponent, regardless of scheme. They're going to run the same offense every single time. We see very little creativity week to week. We see very little things stolen from other places. We see very little game planning directly to the opponent. They were 20th in the NFL in first quarter points in 2021. They're 29th this year. That's game scripting. Those are supposed to be the best plays of your offense, are the first 15 plays that are scripted against whatever defense you're going against that week. And that's when the Jets have been consistently at their worst under Michael LaFleur. That to me says so much more than just looking at the results and going, they scored 3 points followed by 6 points in back-to-back weeks. That matters too. But when you dive in deeper, would many coordinators succeed without an offensive line and a quarterback? No. But if we were seeing LaFleur trying to give his guys the best possible shot in the best way he can, and his guys letting him down, I would feel a hell of a lot differently than I do right now.